Hi, I'm Kim Brown. Glad you could join me today. I thought I would give you an update on that red meat issue I was talking about last week. So if you haven't watched that video yet, you might want to check it out first. And I also thought that you might like to see what this question asking and tapping process looks like for me. Now, this is not a magic formula, okay? This is simply what works well for me. I do not sit down and do a 2-hour session on myself every day, or even every single time I feel uncomfortable or have an unpleasant thought. It's just not feasible, and it's also not necessary. And today, what I would like to show you is how you can begin to unravel those programs yourself, and then come to a place where you decide, now I'm ready for that session. So, what I do is I check in with myself every single day, just like I would check in with a good friend. Now, sometimes you just wake up in the morning and you know from the get-go something's not right. Like that morning I woke up planning to go on a hike that day, but I felt horrible. But I always check in with myself and notice. And clearly we will not notice everything, that's okay. Just notice what you notice. And I always ask myself some questions, not lots of questions all at once. I ask one question at a time. And typically the first question I always ask is, what does it mean? So, red meat is upsetting my digestion. What does that mean? I ask myself. And then I sat with it for just a moment or two. Absolutely nothing came to me. Now sometimes things come quickly, sometimes they don't. Either way, it's okay. I still tap. Whatever it means, wherever it came from, however I learned to do it, and believe it above all else, I let it go. It's safe to let it go. I safely let it all go now. I squeezed my wrist, took a deep breath, let it out, said peace, went and enjoyed my happy place. Squeeze my wrist, take a deep breath, let it out, say peace, come back and notice, see if I can tell anything different. Ask myself again, what does this mean? Sit with it for a moment or two. Still got nothing. That's okay. I tapped again. Same thing, whatever it means, wherever it came from, however I'll learn to do it and believe it above all else. I'm giving my unconscious mind instructions. It doesn't matter where it came from. It doesn't matter what created it. I'm ready to let it go. That's what I'm instructing my unconscious mind to begin the process of doing. And then I just went about my day. And whenever during the day I thought about this red meat issue again, I paused. I asked myself that same question, what does this mean? I sat with it for a moment or two. I still got nothing. That's okay. I still tapped, same thing again. Then I went about my day. Again, whenever I thought about it, I asked and I tapped. Now I did this for a day or so. And then I began to realize I was feeling something uncomfortable, but I didn't know what it was. So I changed the question. Now I asked myself, what am I feeling? And I sat with that for a moment or two. Got nothing. That's okay. I can still tap. Whatever I'm feeling, whatever it means, wherever it came from, however I learned to do it and feel it and believe it above all else, I let it go. It's safe to let it go. I safely let it all go now. And again, went about my day whenever I noticed that feeling again or even thought about it. I paused, I asked that question again, what am I feeling? Waited for a moment or two, still got nothing, still tapped anyway. After a day or two of that, what came to my mind was that feeling was guilt. Now, consciously, that didn't make a bit of sense. But here is a very important concept. It doesn't have to make sense. Your conscious mind doesn't know everything. My conscious mind doesn't know everything. But our unconscious mind does. And what have I been doing for the past several days? I have been instructing my unconscious mind to release and let this go. So it's bringing it into my conscious awareness. I encourage you to begin to take the information your unconscious mind gives you. Consciously, it does not have to make sense, and it may not even make sense to the version of you today, but it made perfect sense to the version of you when that program was established. So take that information. So, it's guilt. And I tap. This guilt feeling, whatever it means, wherever it came from, however I learned to do it, feel it, and believe it above all else, I let it go. It's safe to let it go. I safely let it all go now. And anytime during that day that I felt that guilt feeling or I thought about it, I paused. And I asked myself, how is guilt related to this upset in my stomach? And then a memory came to me. And the memory is my son and daughter and I having dinner, each of us eating a ribeye, and they were delicious. And my son and daughter eat all of theirs. And I eat 4 or 5 bites and I'm done. I don't want any more. Now, we were all enjoying the meal, but I realized there was guilt there because I didn't finish mine. Now, they didn't care. They didn't care, but my meaning was, this is an expensive piece of meat. I didn't know how much it cost, by the way. They had bought it. But I determined it was expensive and I was being wasteful, and it felt guilty. As a matter of fact, we even saved the ribeye a couple times when we had it so that I could have it the next day warmed up. And let me tell you what, that was one nasty piece of meat. I did not like that at all. And we threw it away. And that increased the guilt because I am throwing away an expensive piece of meat. Now remember, this is my story. This is not anything my son and daughter are telling me at all. They're freely enjoying their meal, and they're giving me permission to freely enjoy mine. As a matter of fact, they wouldn't even care if I tied ribbons to that steak and put it on my head and wore it as a hat. It was totally up to me what I did with it. And my story was, I am throwing away something expensive. All right, clearly I've got a story of lack here. This is the story I'm gonna work with in a 2-hour session. But I still have a question. What does guilt have to do with my stomach being upset for eating red meat? So I ask again, whatever this means, wherever it came from, however I learned to do it and feel it and believe it above all else, I let it go. I safely let it all go now. And after a couple times of tapping and asking the question, how does this relate? A memory came to me of being a little girl, and my mom would be washing dishes or sweeping or mopping or some chore in the house, and she would start to feel bad, and I would have to take over for her. So she's feeling bad and she gets out of doing this work. Now that wasn't my mom's story, okay? That was my story, my little girl's story. This is how you get out of something. And then I remembered that I even used that as a child. Whenever I knew in school that we were going to be having a test the next day and I didn't feel like I was prepared for it, the morning of the test, when I woke up, I told my parents, I'm not feeling good today. I need to stay home. And I would get to stay home and have an extra day to study. Being sick gets me out of this. There it is. Being sick gets me out of the responsibility of having to eat that whole steak, which I know I can't do, and I feel guilty for not doing it. And feeling sick gets me out of that guilt feeling. Isn't that interesting? So tap, change those memories. Notice that you can begin to ask questions one at a time. It's okay if you don't get an answer. Tap anyway. I could have had a 2-hour session at any point during this time, okay? You're free to do that. But this whole process is for you to begin to notice that you can actually begin to unravel these programs on your own. It really is the most amazing experience you will ever have to learn how to change your mind. It's how your brain is designed. It's how you are designed. Consider giving yourself permission to learn how to do it. You really are worth it. Thanks for watching this video, and remember, no matter what you've experienced in the past, you don't have to remain stuck there. I can eat red meat again. How about that? Today really is a new day. See you next time.